Hello, we are in Chapter 6, Section 6.2, the quadratic formula. In this video, we're going to go over problem number 4, where we are going to use the quadratic formula to solve this quadratic equation. Let's review the quadratic formula first. We're solving equations of the form ax squared plus bx plus c equals 0 with that, according to this formula in here. So once again, first thing we have to do is to make sure that 0 is isolated on one side of our equation. So let's start with that by adding 1 to both sides of this equation, making sure we write it in descending powers of the variable. So 2x squared plus 12x plus 1, in this case, equals 0. And we identify our coefficients a, b, and c. All of these are positive in here, so it's an easier case. A is 2, b is 12, and c is 1. Now we just plug it into the formula. So x equals, on top, we start with minus b, in this case minus 12, plus or minus the square root of, then the first thing is the b squared, 12 squared in our case, minus 4 times the a, which in our case is 2, and the c, which is 1 in our example. All over 2 times a, 2 times 2 in our case. From that point on, it's just a matter of simplifying that. So we get negative 12 plus or minus. Now, under the square root, we have 12 squared, 144. And then 4 times 2 times 1 is 8. We're subtracting 8. That's all under the square root. And it's all over 2 times 2, which is 4. So then we get negative 12 plus or minus the square root of 136 all over 4. And since we are supposed to have a simplified radical expression, we are looking for all the perfect square factors in the number 136. That largest perfect square factor of 136 is actually 4, which is 2 squared, so we get negative 12 plus or minus the square root of 2 squared multiplied by 34 all over 4. So we throw that base of 2 out of our radical, or factor out of the radical, and get negative 12 plus or minus 2 times the square root of 34 over 4. Now in here, in the numerator, we have a common factor of 2 that we can factor out, specifically acknowledging that 2 is also a factor of the denominator, leading to a simplification. So we're going to have 2 times negative 6 plus or minus just a single square root of 34 over 4, which is 2 times 2. So if we simplify, divide out one of those 2's as factors of both the numerator and denominator, then we get negative 6 plus or minus the square root of 34 divided by 2. Often it will be left in that form. We still acknowledge that we have the 2 solutions, the one with plus in here and the one with minus in here. We can also split it into 2 fractions and simplify the first one, since negative 6 has a factor of 2. Let me write those here. We're going to have x equals negative 6 over 2 plus the square root of 34 over 2. Or x equals negative 6 over 2 minus the square root of 34 over 2. As I said before, negative 6 and 2 have a common factor, so it will be negative 3 over 1, really, both in the first one and in the second one. And we can write those as x equals negative 3 plus the square root of 34 over 2, or x equals negative 3 minus the square root of 34 over 2. And those will be the two solutions to our equation, as always, with an or between them.